everybody, Fully here. Welcome to the weekly news recap, the 3rd to the 9th of February 2025. So, this week Capcom had a Capcom Spotlight, talking about things like Onimusha, some of the Marvel vs. Capcom games, a couple of other things, and then finished off with a big Monster Hunter showcase. So, first up, we had Mai Shiranui joining Street Fighter 6 as part of the Year 2 Fighters Pass. So she'll be joining M. Bison, Terry Bogard, and then later on in the year, Elena from Street Fighter 3 will be joining the roster as well. So she joined the game on 5th of February. So she's already there. As far as I'm aware, she was there before the Capcom Spotlight. But anyway, Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics was exempt from Xbox for a while. Not exempt, missing from Xbox for a while due to technical issues. You can more than likely chalk that up to the Xbox Series S, and the Series S having, what do they call it, content parity policy the Xbox has. For some reason, they weren't able to do that for the Xbox Series S, so it had been out for PlayStation, Switch, and PC at some stage last year, and is now joining the Xbox as well. Just in time for the Capcom Fighting Collection 2, which now has a May release date, 16th of May. So it's going to be a lot of some of the older Capcom vs. games, Capcom vs. SNK, versus SNK 2, Project Justice, Capcom Fighting Evolution, which is not that great a game, but it's good, it's getting some preservation. Street Fighter Alpha 3, Plasma Sword, Power Stone, and Power Stone 2, which is amazing, because I don't think they've ever had a re-release or a remaster or anything, so that's great. And that will be coming to Xbox as well, so that's coming to basically everything on the 16th of May. They showed off the Okami trailer. Again, it's not really a trailer, but whatever. There is an Okami sequel allegedly in development. Hideki Kamiya attached. Clover Studio resurrected to be Clovers instead. Still a very long way off. I don't think we're going to be seeing it anytime soon. However, Capcom did make mention that Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess, is very much a spiritual brother, if you like, spiritual sibling to Okami. It's also a very, very good game. I suggest you play it if you get a chance to. The demo is available on PlayStation and Xbox and PC, so do try that out. And if you do like it, you can get Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess, and the original Okami in a 2-game bundle. Some more information about Onimusha Way of the Sword, which is a soft reboot / sequel to the Okami series. So this was mostly just fleshing out some information that we didn't get from the original trailer. There's no new footage or anything like that. But it is a new protagonist, so we're not Samanosuke Akechi anymore. We're not Jubei Yagyu, we're not Soki from Dawn of Dreams, and we're not whoever Jean Reno was in Onimusha 3. We're not him either. We're a brand new protagonist. This kind of gets Capcom around the likeness rights. So Onimusha 1, 2, and 3 had Samanosuke Akechi is the main character of 1 and 3, and Jubei Yagyu is the main character of 2. However, they used actors' likenesses for both of them. So I'd imagine, one, that's the reason we haven't really seen many re-releases of the series. But it's also a reason why Capcom would want a different person, a different protagonist, so they don't have to pay licensing rights and all that stuff. So it's going to be set in Edo period Kyoto, which I'm pretty sure is when the first game was set. And it is going to be like an emphasis on swordplay and combat and what have you, but they're not trying to make an impossibly difficult game, which is their words. So they're not going for like a Souls-like, really hard, fuck you game. They want it to be fun. Still. Anyway, but yeah, big surprise, even though, as I was saying, we don't see many re-releases and remasters or what have you of Onimusha, but we are going to get an Onimusha 2, Samurai's Destiny, which you might imagine is Onimusha 2. Came out in 2002 on the PlayStation 2. I don't think it was ever on the original Xbox. I think they got Genma Onimusha instead. But yeah, that's pretty cool, because we already have Onimusha Warlords, the first game, did get a remaster. Onimusha 2 getting a remaster, and now do Demon Siege, you cowards! Do Onimusha 3. Anyway, then they had a big talk about Monster Hunter, but it didn't really say anything new about the game. And it's also out very, very soon, so I guess there isn't a whole lot more new things they can trot out. Anyway, updates elsewhere. There's a couple of interesting games. Have some demos available on Steam. So this is Roots Devour. So this is kind of like, it's like an evil tree in your medieval village that, people tell you to stay away from because it's haunted or because it's evil or whatever. In Roots Devour, you are the tree. You're the evil tree. It's spreading your influence around the hamlet, around the village, and that kind of thing. It's all played out in this kind of tabletop kind of cards visuals. It's a little bit of Cultist Simulator, a little bit as well. It's a pretty cool idea. It's an interesting way to do it, and I think later on in the trailer you can kind of get a pretty cool idea of the spread of your tree's roots, if you like. I think there's a bit where they like zoom out and just shows you how far the tree has gone. Yeah, I like this kind of stuff. How far things have spread and that kind of thing. It's pretty interesting. There is a demo available for it now if you are interested. It's PC only currently. Chronicles of the Wolf is an interesting one. This is very much a throwback to some of the original Castlevanias, particularly Super Castlevania and Castlevania 2. Just looking at it, you might be forgiven for thinking it is a Castlevania game because it is so very much on the nose. But it is clear that's what they're going for. So much so that there is a crossover with Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which was also a sort of Castlevania throwback game. So one of the villains from that game is also a villain in this. So there is a little bit of a crossover thing going on. This is scheduled for release some stage in the summer and is, I think, slated for basically everything. Yeah. PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, PC, all those things. Anyway, Chronicles of the Wolf. Whispers of the Eyeless. So Whispers of the Eyeless is developed by it's a developer who's probably best known for a really good Total War mod. But anyway, they do have other games that they've played. This one is kind of Darkest Dungeon, but you're the bad guy, I guess. Like, it's Darkest Dungeon, but you're playing the role of like the cultists and like the necromancer and the bandits and that kind of thing. The kind of deal of it is you are essentially starting a cult of the old gods, and you're planning to like take over the nearby areas and promote the religion of the old gods and death to the new living gods and so on and so forth. But it does feel like it plays almost like a reverse Darkest Dungeon in some ways. Anyway, that's Whispers of the Eyeless. I don't think it has a release date yet, but I do think there is a demo. And they are planning an early access release later on this month. So the end of the month, it's joining early access. Some more Xbox originally first-party titles making their way over to PlayStation. So this time we have some of the strategy games. So Age of Mythology and Age of Empires 2. The remasters specifically are making their way over to PlayStation. So they're already available on Xbox and PC. Age of Mythology Retold, I think, is a remaster of the 2002 game. So, God, it's as old as Onimusha 2. That's incredible. All right, anyway, that is getting a new expansion. It's like something Pillars, Immortal Pillars is the expansion for Age of Mythology. That's coming on the 4th of March and is joining the PlayStation on the 4th of March as well. The new DLC will add a new pantheon. So the Age of Mythology, I think, from default is Greek, Norse, Egyptian. There's there Greek, Norse, Egyptian, and Atlantean pantheons, whatever that is. And with the Immortal Pillars, the Chinese pantheon will be joining it. And then later in the year, no specific date yet, but Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition is also getting some DLC. What exactly is in that DLC? We don't know. But at some stage in the spring, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition will be playable on the PlayStation. The 1999 original, we're getting even older. But yeah, there'll be some kind of DLC. Fresh new content, new civilizations for ranked play. That's all we know about it. But it is another first-party developed game for Microsoft, Xbox, PC, making its way over to PlayStation. So it's joining Forza eventually, whenever that makes its way across, and is already joining things like Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, a few other games, Indiana Jones eventually. Okay, so the game's not coming out now. Football Manager 25 has been cancelled. Make sure to hug a lad in your life today as they cry into their big file of teenagers who can execute a flawless Rabona. I don't know what any of that means. Anyway, Football Manager 25 has officially been cancelled now by Sega and Sports Interactive. This has had quite a few delays at this point. Really should have come out last year. Mid last year, I think, was when it was really slated to come out, and has been just been delayed, and now finally bitten the bullet and just said, no, we're just not going to release it now, so they're just going to focus entirely on Football Manager 26. Anyway, Sports Interactive regret to inform that following extensive internal discussion, careful consideration with Sega, we have made the difficult decision to cancel Football Manager 25 and shift our focus to the next release. For the large numbers of you who have pre-ordered Football Manager 25, thank you for your money. No. We thank you enormously for your trust and support. We're very sorry to have let you down. We know this will come as a huge disappointment as the release date has already moved, and you've been eagerly anticipating the first gameplay reveal, but that's not going to happen now. I apologize, yada yada yada. Just look forward for the next game. This is kind of a testament to not doing annualized releases, or if you are going to do annualized releases, you kind of need multiple developers so that you can like tag off. I don't really necessarily like the way Call of Duty does things. I think its developers kind of should be given some time to work on other things. But if they are going to be putting out a new Call of Duty every year, the way to do it is to have a couple of developers work on one, and another couple of developers work on another one, and just have them just come out in rotation instead of having just one developer work on the same thing, because this kind of thing happens, basically. But yeah, no Football Manager 25 this year, or last year. Moving on, Steam now warns players if early access games have been abandoned. So Steam is adding a kind of a warning if you decide to buy an early access game. It's going to basically tell you that, hey, the last update made to this developer was over X months ago. The information and timeline described by the developers here may no longer be up to date. So right now it seems like it's triggering on 12 months. So if it's been a year since the game has been updated, and the game is still in early access, you will be warned. If you decide to purchase an early access game and it's been 12 months or more since the last update, you'll get this warning. This is coming from SteamDB. SteamDB is a very good third-party thing for monitoring Steam. It also has its own extension that just has this by default. This is the last time the game was updated, and some of them were like, game was updated today. The game was updated like 4 days ago, and so on. And some of them are like, this game hasn't been updated in like 15 years. It's probably not going to work. Anyway, there hasn't actually been any official word from Valve about this edition, so seems like it was more of a stealth update on their part, because they're not really going to draw attention to the idea that, hey, maybe some of those early access games are just scams. Anyway, I'm sure they don't want to draw attention to that. Anyway, moving on. 2 games available on the Epic Games Store for free this week. Humankind, I guess trying to piggyback on the Civilization 7 hype. So Humankind is a similar type of game. It's nowhere, not even remotely close to being as good as the Civ games. I don't play these kind of games. I'm getting this mostly from other people in the industry and some friends like who do like those kind of games, saying the Humankind's maybe not that great, but hey, it is free. And if you didn't pay to get Civilization, if you didn't pay the extra money to play Civilization 7 on the day it comes out, which is a really shitty industry practice that I really wish they would stop, but people keep paying for it, so here we are. Anyway, Humankind for free. The other game is Beyond Blue. Beyond Blue is a kind of like Richard Attenborough? Fuck. Which is the guy who does the documentaries and which is the guy who's in Jurassic Park. I always get them mixed up. Anyway, it's kind of that. Calling it a game is maybe a little bit not quite right. It's a swimming simulator, I guess, instead of a walking simulator. But it is a kind of, big blue ocean, isn't it great? And look at all these fish and mammals, and oh god, don't dive too deep because then that's where all the nightmares are. Anyway, that's Beyond Blue. Some monthly game refreshes, so it is coming to the middle of the month. Game Pass should be getting its second wave, and the PlayStation Plus catalog will be getting an update. We don't have information on the PlayStation Plus one yet. We'll probably get that next week instead, but we do have some information on the Game Pass second wave. So, joining the standard tier, we've got Ayuden Chronicles 100 Heroes, which is a sort of spiritual successor to the Suikoden series. It's the JRPG series that has like hundreds of party members. Another Crab's Treasure is a kind of parody of the Dark Souls thing, where you're playing a crab, a hermit crab who's had their shell stolen, and you're going to fight it back, but it plays like a Dark Souls kind of game. On the other hand, it being a parody doesn't take itself very seriously. There is a cheat where you can just give the crab a gun, and it's like one-shots everything. It is hilarious. Anyway, Starfield no longer restricted to the Ultimate tier. It's now back in the Standard tier. Still don't think anyone's going to play it, but whatever. Kingdom 2 Crowns. I'm not really I keep what's the word? Confusing this with Kingdom Come Deliverance. It's not the same game. I'm gonna have to read the blurb about it because I don't quite remember what it is. A different football Madden 25 is actually coming out. Be available day one on Xbox Game Pass, and Avowed similarly will be a day one play with Game Pass on the Ultimate and PC tier. Avowed is sort of Skyrim if you squint, but not really. The easiest way to describe it is Skyrim, but just squint at it. Anyway, so available today. Okay, Far Cry New Dawn, which isn't in that list, but whatever. That is also available today, being 4th of February. Another Crab's Treasure will already be there, 5th of February. Ayuden Chronicles, similarly, 5th of February. Starfield, similarly. Madden, February 6th, again, should already be there. Kingdom 2 Crowns will be next week, the day before Valentine's Day. It's already been on Game Pass before. What kind of game is it? Players must work solo co-op campaign to build their kingdom. So it's a kingdom builder. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Avowed, 18th of February, which I think is not next week. I think it's the week after. Anyway, so that'll be a day one. And then there's a couple of other things that are already on Game Pass. Moving on. Those are some of the games you can play soon. What if you wanted to play something right now? Well, as I mentioned, Civ 7. The game industry wants you to think that its actual release date isn't until next week. But it is out. It's already out. Like, I'm not going with this bullshit early access, extra money stuff. The game is out. This week was its release date. You're paying to play it on the day it comes out instead of paying to play it, or not paying extra to play it later, anyway. So Civ 7, I'm sure, needs no introduction. It's a kingdom builder in some ways. History simulator type deal. I think this trailer is just like the intro cinema, and it doesn't actually show any gameplay. But it's, a 4X thing. 4X management type thing. Click on people's heads and things happen. I don't know. I don't like the games all that much, but it's a big enough release that I kind of have to talk about it. Anyway. Civ 7. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So following on from the events of Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, you're still like a jumped up peasant who's kind of been thrown into historic Bohemia, playing the bodyguard of a local lord. Things go wrong as they are expected to in Kingdom Come Deliverance, and shenanigans transpire. The whole deal with Kingdom Come Deliverance is that it's meant to be a hardy, realistic medieval kind of thing. You're not going to be finding dragons and magic and fireballs and special potions and that kind of stuff. That's not what Kingdom Come Deliverance is. It's meant to be hey, what if it really was medieval times shit? You're not like the chosen one. You're not like the special boy in the fantasy. It's no, you're just some guy. You're just some shitty peasant like the rest of us. Anyway, I also don't like it for those kind of reasons. Oh, the reason I don't like it is because it doesn't let you save scum. I want to save scum. Just let me do it. Anyway, move on. Rift of the Necrodancer. So you may be familiar with Crypt of the Necrodancer, which is a kind of roguelike dungeon crawler with rhythm action elements to it. Rift of the Necrodancer kind of takes the dungeon part of it away, and it's really just a rhythm action game now. So it's a lot more fluid. It is taking Crypt of the Necrodancer's sort of approach to rhythm, in that the enemies kind of dictate the rhythm of the music in some ways. So depending on the enemy you're encountering, you may have to press the button a couple of times. It might be that enemy moves to the side at the last second, and you need to know that in your various strategies. It might be that you actually have to press the key one square before you might have to do it, and that kind of thing. So you're not really just waiting for the button to reach the line and press it. You know, there's a lot more strategy involved in the Necrodancer stuff, but it's still really good. And there is a demo available for it on PC, as far as I'm aware, and I think it is coming to Switch. I'm not sure if it's coming to Switch day one. Doesn't look like it's coming to Switch day one, so it might be on Switch later, but it is on PC right now. Then we have While Waiting. I've talked about While Waiting a few times. It was on Steam Next Fest, and the demo was pretty interesting. But the idea of While Waiting is... it's almost kind of an idling game, but the idea is... you're set into one particular scenario. Like in that case, you can see in the screenshot, he's waiting for his luggage to arrive after he's gotten off the airplane. And it's all the kind of shenanigans you can get up to while you're waiting for something else. Like some of it is you're just waiting in line. He's waiting to cross the road, you know, he's waiting for a doctor's appointment, or he's waiting for something to load there, like it's all that kind of stuff. But there's all sorts of like silly, almost Untitled Goose Game shenanigans you can get up to while that's happening. And that's kind of the game. It's just some very silly scenarios, more or less. That's available on PC right now. And then the last one we're looking at is Slender Threads. So Slender Threads is this sort of... it's almost got like a, I don't know, it's not claymation exactly, but it's almost like they're made, like they're... it's got a real Tim Burton vibe to it, I guess, is probably what I really mean. Anyway, so Slender Threads, point-and-click adventure, like a big throwback to some of the older point-and-click adventure type games. It's got a little bit more of a horror vibe to it. It's got like Eldritch, Cthulhu stuff, you know, cults and that kind of thing. Mysterious murders, you trying to figure it out, having to talk to crazy people, and maybe they're not as crazy as they seem, kind of thing. The trailer makes it seem like it's pretty good. The voice acting is pretty decent as well. It doesn't really show off too many of the puzzles, but puzzles in point-and-click games usually don't make sense in the first place, so that's probably alright. Anyway, that's Slender Threads, which is out this week as well. Unfortunately, though, it's now time to talk about the worst part of video games. The video game industry. So, we have EA unites 4 studios under the new Battlefield Studios banner to jointly develop the series. So, they finally bit the bullet and just created the Call of Duty mines. Alright, we have the Battlefield mines now, so it's going to combine 4 studios, DICE, who typically work on Battlefield anyway, and then we have EA Motive, who most recently would have worked on the Dead Space remake. It's really unfortunate that they're now being thrown in the mines. And then Criterion, who would have probably best known for the Burnout series, have been working on the Need for Speed series for a while now, and now they're being pushed into the Call of Duty mines as well. Not sure why you're putting a driving game studio into this, but whatever. And then Ripple Effect, who I think have been a support studio on just various other EA things. So it probably makes sense for them to be roped in here as well. But it's pretty disappointing to take EA Motive and Criterion effectively out of making anything else and just throwing them in the Battlefield mines. Anyway, on top of that, they've announced Battlefield Labs, which is a sort of insider program for people who are really into the Battlefield games. We want our community to play a key role in the future of Battlefield, and this is an opportunity for many of you to do just that. So it's an idea of bringing in like outside players to like play test various things about the Battlefield series. So after Battlefield 2042, which was not a great look for EA, EA elected to take a page out of Call of Duty's playbook, which is basically turn all of your developers into Call of Duty developers instead. So that is kind of what EA is doing. I'm surprised they didn't rope BioWare into it, to be honest. If they hadn't made a stink about BioWare on Mass Effect 5, I feel like BioWare would have been roped in here too. Anyway, so the Need for Speed series will be on ice for now. That's according to Criterion themselves. We know that EA Motive wanted to make either Dead Space 2 remake or just a complete follow-up to Dead Space, or just something else, but no, they've been thrown in the Battlefield mines as well. So that's not great. And it does mean, one, it means that, you know, we're not going to be getting anything necessarily new from EA for a good while. It's Battlefield or Mass Effect, really, at this point. But it also means EA is putting a lot of stock into Battlefield now. And if it doesn't do well this time around, they might be in a lot of trouble. Maybe. They still have, you know, EA football to fall back on, so it's not like they're really going to struggle, but it's not a great look for them. Anyway, moving on. but not moving on too far from EA because they said something stupid. All right, EA suggests Dragon Age: The Veilguard would have sold better if it had live service stuff. Like, fuck off. Number one. That's my first response to that. But anyway, we'll go through it. So the publisher's top brass appears to have suggested that adding live service shit into Dragon Age: The Veilguard would have got them more copies. No, it wouldn't, but okay. Anyway, so this is coming from Andrew Wilson, is the CEO, then the chief financial officer also suggested that the game's offline one-and-done nature was to blame for it not meeting the publisher's sales expectations, and not that your sales expectations were absolutely ridiculous. Dragon Age: The Veilguard sold almost 2 million copies. That's very good. And they're sad it didn't do better than that. Like, fuck off. No, they expected it to do better than that, which is even more of a fuck off, right? In order to break out beyond the core audience, I don't know why they thought they'd add a fourth Dragon Age game well after the series' last intro, and they thought that would break out of their core audience. I don't, like, where are these expectations coming from? Anyway, games need to directly connect to the evolving demand of players who increasingly seek shared world features and deeper engagement alongside high-quality narratives in this beloved category. No, they don't. In this beloved category, it's just the high-quality narrative. They are absolutely not seeking shared world features and deeper engagement. People who play single-player RPGs. No, they are not. And even with that, even if that was the case, every new live service game that has come out has just cratered almost immediately, and they're still banging on about it. Anyway, talking again about Dragon Age: The Veilguard, why it took so long to come out, why there was so much development behind it and so on. It was literally because they went from a single-player focused traditional Dragon Age game. Then they made it a live action, or not live action, wow, that would be great. No, a live service game, fully multiplayer only thing. Then they went back to making it single player again, which is why it flip-flops so much. It's why it has such a weird vibe to it. This is after Anthem, and they still thought, no, let's make it a live service thing. This is what we mean when we say, like, the executives and the people at the top and the people in the suits just don't understand video games at all. Anyway, the real question here, of course, is what does this mean for Mass Effect 5? Are we going to see a lot of live service shit shoehorned into it? Because apparently that's what they want. I guess we'll see. Anyway, sticking with that, we have some former Dragon Age people basically to say the same thing that I was saying, which was you just don't understand video games in the first place. So this is coming from some former Dragon Age lead developers, talking about Andrew Wilson's thing about saying the shared fucking universe shit. Anyway, so Dragon Age creative director Mike Laidlaw basically said, look, I'm not a fancy CEO guy, but if someone said to me, the key to this successful single-player IP's success is to make it purely a multiplayer game, no, not a spin-off, fundamentally change the DNA of what people loved about the core game, to me, I'd probably, like, quit the job or something. I'm just thinking out loud, of course. Who'd be silly enough to demand something like that? Twice. Referring to Anthem, of course, anyway. And also referring to Dragon Age: The Veilguard flip-flopping on the live service thing. Then we have David Gator, who's also a former BioWare person. If I really dig into my empathy, I can kind of see this thinking. Like, let's say you don't actually know much about games. You're in a big office with a bunch of other execs who also don't know much about games. What are they all saying? Oh, live games do big numbers. Action games are hot. Whatever. My advice to EA, not that they care, but you have an IP that a lot of people love deeply. At its height, it sold well enough to make you happy, right? Look at what it did best at that point, where it sold the most. Follow Baldur's Gate 3 studio Larian's lead and double down on that. The audience is still there and waiting. And it's like, no, they're not going to fucking listen to you, but yes, that is exactly what you should be doing. Go back to when it sold at its best, which is probably Dragon Age Origins. Just do that. Just do that again. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of executives who don't know anything about video games, Warner Brothers. Alright, Wonder Woman game reportedly struggling, with new Batman still many years away. Okay. So we talked previously about Warner Brothers, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, shutting down, and now Multiverses is shutting down as well. They're obviously not doing great, the whole live service thing. Hey, let's make more live services. Anyway, so Speaking specifically about Wonder Woman, the Wonder Woman game has been with the Monolith guys. These are the people behind Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, that kind of stuff. Back in 2021, I think was the first time we heard anything about it. It's been in development longer than that. So there've been some development issues with that. They've been trying to sort of retool the Nemesis system from the Middle-earth games and make it work for Wonder Woman, but it's just not really working out for them, so they've rebooted the project. It's going to be a more traditional action-adventure thing, so probably think the Batman games, I suppose. Development has already cost them $100 million, and it's only going to go up from there if they decide to keep going with the project at all, which they may not. Then talking about Rocksteady, who've just come off Suicide Squad's Kill the Justice League, obviously did not do very well. Servers haven't quite shut down yet, but they're on their way. It's alleged that they're going back to a new Batman Arkham game, but since they're pretty much starting now, it's gonna be a while before you see a new one anytime soon. And not only that, the kind of leadership that was in place for the Batman Arkham series isn't there anymore. They've left Rocksteady, so it's questionable what happens here. And then we have Warner Bros. Games Montreal, who've most recently been working on Gotham Knights. They've pitched an idea to sort of revamp Gotham Knights in like a 1.5 version, but Warner Brothers have said no. It's the first time they've said no to a live service thing, but okay. Although Gotham Knights isn't quite a live service game, but you can certainly see the scars. I feel like they really wanted it to be. Anyway. So it seems like they're going to be working on some kind of Game of Thrones thing instead. And then Avalanche Software, the people behind Hogwarts Legacy, they've got some more content for Hogwarts Legacy on the way, and then there is a Hogwarts Legacy 2 allegedly in development. So that's kind of their only real light at the end of the tunnel. Like Wonder Woman, still a while off, might not ever actually come out. And the new Batman Arkham game, fucking years away. At this point, it's probably a PlayStation 6 game, realistically. And then whatever's happening with the Gotham Knights developers, this Game of Thrones game, I don't know, does anybody really want that Game of Thrones game? I don't know. Anyway, a lot of these issues have been levied at outgoing executive David Haddad. So according to some current and former staff, they seem to have little actual familiarity with gaming whatsoever, which is, you know, the same as the last crew we were talking about, EA Games. People at the top of that thinking, yeah, let's put live service shit into Dragon Age. Some smart people there. Moving on. Alright, so we've got a little bit, a big barrage of layoffs, really, so stay put. Snake Pass and Sonic Racing developer Sumo Digital no longer planning to work on any original IP. So they decided to just work exclusively on supporting roles for other studios, alleged to balance our creative ambitions and the commercial realities to ensure the long-term stability and success of our business, but not of our employees, it seems right. Multiple original projects were recently in development at the company, but have since been cancelled. So Sumo Digital, probably best known for working on things like Sackboy Big Adventure, the Sonic Racing series. They do have their own IP, like Snake Pass, which is a really interesting platformer. I don't think it did very well, but it's really interesting. It's like a platformer where you don't jump. You know, you're a snake. You have to slither around things and work your way around poles and overhanging things and dropping down. It was really creative. But yeah, I don't think it sold very well. Anyway, layoffs are almost certainly likely as a bunch of projects have been cancelled. Unavoidably, this transition will have an impact on our studios and people. We are committed to minimizing this impact as much as possible, exploring all options to retain talent and supporting those affected with transparency, care, and compassion, but there are almost certainly going to be layoffs. Speaking of their layoffs, they already had 15% of its layoffs last year. Good shit. So they're continuing on that one. Anyway, that's not the only layoffs happening. Probably Monsters concerns more layoffs after pledging to build a stable home for developers, which, well, that didn't fucking happen now, did it? So Probably Monsters is a multi-studio thing set up from a former Bungie CEO, Harold Ryan. Another round of job cuts, another cancellations of unannounced projects and stuff like that. It seems to be a growing trend with some of the smaller studios, is that they're just cutting back on some of their unannounced things and are continuing with business as usual instead of trying to sort of break out of the mold. Last year, the company had already laid off 50 workers after cancelling an in-development project. This is the third project cancellation from the studio. Probably Monsters has raised over $250 million since its inception to establish multiple studios and create a more stable home for developers. Citation needed. One of those studios was Concord developer Firewalk. Well, that didn't work out. Now, to be fair, they didn't shutter Firewalk. Sony did after they bought them, but still, not great. Anyway, an update to the story. Originally, Probably Monsters declined to comment, but they did eventually come back to say that yes, they have confirmed that there has been an undisclosed number of people laid off. Our focus remains on creating a sustainable environment where our developers can thrive, just not those developers that we fired. Just not them. We remain dedicated to our mission of building a positive and long-lasting game development culture, just not for those people that we fired. Anyway, moving on. But still, it's still more layoffs. Iron Galaxy lay off 66 employees. Iron Galaxy are probably best known for the most recent Killer Instinct, but they have been a support studio on a bunch of other things like Call of Duty, The Last of Us, Uncharted, Fallout, Destiny, Bioshock, lots and lots of things. They did have their own live service, Rumbleverse, which was this kind of battle royale wrestling kind of thing, which again didn't do great. Anyway, following years of making sacrifices, we have now run out of room to maneuver. In total, we have reduced our employee base by 66 people. This was a means of last resort for us. It's a measure we do not take lightly to enable our long-term survival. At this moment, our focus is on our teammates who have begun a journey toward their next role. Who fucking started them on that journey? Like, I was almost with them with this quote, but then they threw out some horrible corporate shit, and it's like, we're still trying to find the guy who did this. Hot dog costume guy. Anyway. But wait, there's more layoffs. Hi-Rez lays off devs, ends development for 3 games. So we'd already kind of talked about Hi-Rez. These are the people behind Smite, specifically, and Realm Royale. But they had a bunch of other games, a bunch of other kind of servicey type games that are middling to good. Like, I think Paladins is their game as well. And previously we had heard that they had planned to shut down a bunch of them to focus on Paladins, Smite, and then the upcoming Smite 2. So it turns out they're also going to be shutting down Paladins as well. Also going to be shutting down the original Smite. So they're basically just going all in on Smite 2, which isn't out yet, as far as I'm aware. Anyway. So nearly 30 employees are being dropped at time of writing. The reason for the layoffs has currently not been disclosed, but it is allegedly because of these games all being axed at the time. So Hi-Rez previously has laid off workers since the end of October of last year. That was mostly targeting people who were making like cosmetics for those games. Since the game is going to be winding down, there wasn't much work for cosmetic people. You would think you would move them over to Smite 2, but no. Anyway. This new round is a little bit more widespread. It's targeting producers, designers, programmers, effectively the whole like core part of the team. Anyway, so the studio has eliminated staff to ensure Smite 2's long-term success, which is a little bit strange because they've also gotten rid of Smite developers who were meant to be working on Smite 2. So mixed messages here. Anyway, the update does kind of point out that yes, this is because we are ending development for Smite, Paladins, and Rogue Company. Smite 2 is the focus of Hi-Rez's newly streamlined operations, though developers on that title are also being laid off. So it's like you're streamlining it a bit too much. You streamlined it so much that it actually can't move now. It's so aerodynamic, you guys. Now we just need someone to pick it up and throw it, I guess. Anyway, we'll see how that works out for them, but I think they may have thrown away too many eggs at this point. Moving on. Speaking of, okay, this one isn't layoffs necessarily, but it is another live service game dying. Resident Evil's multiplayer spin-off Reverse is shutting down later this year. Will be unplayable by the end of June. So the game and its DLC will be delisted from stores next month. Servers go offline in June. Resident Evil Reverse is a kind of 6v6 thing. I think it was a 6v6 thing anyway, where you would play some of the hero characters and then you could like pick up a potion or something somewhere on the map to turn into one of the bigger villains like Nemesis or Mr. X or Jack Baker from Resi 7 and that kind of thing. It came out roughly around the same time as Village, but I don't think it had any Village things in it, and was meant to be a kind of 25th anniversary thing. And Capcom for their part are trying to position it that way and say, hey, this was for the 25th anniversary, and that's over now, so the game is also over. Yep. It's not because it didn't do well at all or sell make any money or anything like that. Anyway, the game will no longer be playable once the servers are switched off, so there won't be an offline mode or anything like that. So if you paid money for it, well, it's your own fault really for live service shit, but yeah, in general, just don't put any money in these free-to-play live service games because they just won't be there by the end of time. There's a couple of games that still have the offline mode. Like, it's somewhat surprising that Warner Brothers put the extra time in to make a offline available Suicide Squad and Multiverses and stuff, but typically it's just once the servers are down, that's it. So I hope you didn't put any money into it. But yeah, Resident Evil Reverse was developed in celebration of the 25th anniversary of the Resident Evil series. Your overwhelming support for the game? Citation needed on that one. But now that we've reached a new turning point for the series, and that's kind of the more interesting question there. Like, what turning point? Like, what are you doing with Resident Evil 9 that you're considering it a turning point? Anyway, it has served its original celebratory purpose. Yep, that's why we're closing it, not because it did shit. It wasn't well received when it launched, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it was not a good game. Let's be clear. Anyway, moving on. So talking about live service games that shutter and then leave you with effectively a dead product. Some people from the, what is it called? Stop Killing Games campaign brought something forward to the UK Parliament this week to basically say like it's like consumer protection. They should at least put in an offline mode, or there should be some kind of protection for purchases made for a game that eventually goes offline and so on and so forth. Anyway, the UK have basically come back to say, no. Anyway, they're not going to tighten the law. So when a live service game sees its service switched off, there's essentially no protection for the consumer. So in a wordy statement, but the government basically said they had no plans to amend consumer law on digital obsolescence. Video game companies would simply continue to be bound by existing legislation, which they're clearly, they're clearly doing that. Okay, anyway. So the original petition from Stop Killing Games argued that current laws do not do enough to dissuade video game companies from switching off games, partly or fully, as a form of planned obsolescence, leaving owners unable to continue using their purchase. The UK government basically cited a couple of different regulations that this should fall under, and I would argue doesn't, but whatever. Anyway, there's no requirement in UK law for software companies to support older versions of their products, so I take kind of issue with that, because this isn't an older version of their product that they've decided to stop supporting. You know, it's not like they're no longer supporting version 1.0 and they want you to push up to version 1.2. You know, that's not what the problem here is. The problem is they're not supporting the product at all anymore. It's not just an older version or whatever. That they're just not supporting it de facto. Done. Anyway, so in that case, I feel like it doesn't fall under that regulation. But anyway, if software is offered for sale that is not supported by the provider, then this should be made clear. But it isn't. Like, nowhere in, like, oh, maybe it's buried somewhere in the terms of service fucking shit that nobody reads, I guess. That's probably their way out of it. But it's not like it's on the box that says, hey, by the way, we're shutting down in 2 years, lol. If consumers are led to believe that a game will remain playable indefinitely for certain systems, despite the end of physical support, the CPR may, it's the name of the law, may require that the game remains technically feasible, for example, being made available offline to play under those circumstances. The thing is, I don't think any product does say that this game will be playable indefinitely, but it doesn't say that it's going to be shut down eventually either. You know, it doesn't go any side of it. From my side, I think it should be made playable offline, and not just for a consumer protection side of things. I think just from a games preservation side of things, from an art preservation side of things, it should be made available offline. There should be an archival version of the game. Anyway, as pointed out here at the end, Games preservation is a huge issue right now. Silent era American films have a better survival rate than classic video games because we just don't preserve them. We just let them die, and then that's the end of it. Anyway, last thing on our industry bullshit. E3 is trying to rise from the ashes. The ESA is back with a new video game conference for change makers. And the people you see who've joined up for it, they're not exactly change makers. Anyway, conference that is IICon, or just ICON, to be known as the Interactive Innovation Conference, essential convening for change makers across industries, but just the video game industry also. Anyway, the first one will be the end of April of next year, but it's kind of the people who are slated to attend this new conference. So confirming their attendance: Amazon, Disney, EA, Epic Games, Microsoft, Nintendo, Sony, Square Enix, Take-Two, Ubisoft, or Warner Brothers. How many of them would you consider change makers? How many of them would you consider to be innovators? How many of them would really just be... There's some innovation in laying off people, I guess. That's probably about it. Anyway, this is from the president of the ESA with IICon, or just Icon, or whatever way they're pronouncing it. We are creating a space for visionaries across industries to come together, connect, and reimagine what's possible through interactive entertainment. And we're going to do that with exclusively just video game companies, and exclusively just the AAA video game companies. Okay. Good luck with that. Anyway, moving on. Some things happening out in the community. So Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 modders inevitably declare war on Savior Schnaps and have made the game playable on a toaster if you don't care about nature. So this is the modding scene. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, just out, already has a fairly thriving modding scene. This would have come from the first game, which also has a fairly substantial modding scene. But I wanted to point out the Savior Schnaps thing, because it's the whole reason why I don't play the game. And as I mentioned in the new releases section, I would play more Kingdom Come Deliverance if you'd let me save scum, but you don't. So here we are. So they've added a mod that lets you save whenever you like. The way the game works currently is that it's all auto-saved. There's no option to do like a quick save or to make a separate save anywhere else or something like that. And the idea, like, I understand the idea behind it is that they want you to live with the consequences of your actions and so on, but like, no, I don't want to. The consequences are really bad, and I don't want them. Anyway, the Savior Schnaps thing is a concession, if you like, to the player who would like to save scum. But the idea is you can make a save, but you'll be drunk off your ass for the next, like, 2 hours. That's not very helpful. It's like, I want to save because the thing I'm about to do could easily fuck up. And they're like, lol, no, we're gonna make it so it's guaranteed to fuck up, basically, with the Savior Schnaps instead. So anyway, the mod gets rid of that. You can just save wherever you want, and good. Get rid of save scumming. Or not get rid of save scumming. Promote save scumming. Where my save scummers rise up. A couple of other mods. Some of them are like, you know, let the game run on the lowest possible fucking spec machine you could think of. Runs fine, but you actually can't interact with a lot of different things, which is really funny. Anyway, moving on, we got more Sony targeting Bloodborne things. Another Bloodborne fan project gets the legal takedown treatment, sparking again more speculation that there's an official remake coming. Again, I don't think so. I really think it's just Sony being shit and just taking a while to get there. Who knows? Maybe there is. Like, I would love to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong, and there, you know, next week's alleged state of play, we hear that, hey, there's totally a Bloodborne patch or something. I don't know. Anyway, the Bloodborne PSX demake fan project is the latest legal takedown victim. So the Bloodborne demake, this might be some video footage of it here from Eurogamer. So the idea was to take Bloodborne back to like PS1 era, PS1 era. And it honestly just looks like Nightmare Creatures. And I always felt Nightmare Creatures was just Bloodborne, and Bloodborne was just Nightmare Creatures. And it's so on the nose here with this the PS1 demake. Anyway, unfortunately, that has been hit with its own legal takedown thing, so that is gone now. You can no longer play legitimately anyway. Bloodborne PSX remake. This is from the same developer who made Bloodborne Kart. And we'll talk about Bloodborne Kart in a second, but that is okay for now. But anyway, Bloodborne PSX is gone. Why is Sony suddenly so interested in Bloodborne-related fan projects that have been around for, let's be honest, quite some time now? Yeah, we don't know. Like, it would be great if it's because they're gonna put out their own one, and they don't want the idea of you searching online for, Bloodborne 60 FPS patch or whatever, and getting the unofficial mod, and they would rather you paid money for whatever the remaster version is instead, and so on. So that's the assumption. We'll see. I still think it's just them being dickheads. Anyway, speaking of Bloodborne Kart, it's actually getting DLC. So Bloodborne Kart at the time, when it was still called Bloodborne Kart and was about to be released as Bloodborne Kart, they were hit with a DMCA cease and desist kind of thing. I think it was a cease and desist. That they couldn't use the name Bloodborne, they couldn't use the names of the characters and so on and so forth, so that actually stopped the game being released for quite a while, as the developer went back to effectively scrub all of the Bloodborne things out of it. So now it's just, so when it did eventually come out, it was called Nightmare Kart instead. Again, Nightmare Creatures. Like, it's so, they're so the same game. Anyway, originally Bloodborne Kart, it's now Nightmare Kart. You can still get it for free on Steam and itch.io. But anyway, it's getting DLC, the old karts. It's a play on the old Bloodborne, the DLC. And it's effectively adding like the kart version of the stuff that was in the old Blood. It's the characters that were from that. It's some of the areas that were from that, but like karts now instead. Anyway, very funny, very silly. Very, very dumb. But still, that one's still thriving, mostly because it doesn't have Bloodborne in it. Anyway. Alright, so this last thing is more directed at the shitty part of the community that is unfortunately a part of the community, and we'd rather they weren't, but they are, but here we are. Multiverse's director, fans are crossing the line by threatening devs after shutdown announcements. So we knew like 2 weeks ago now or so the Multiverse was going to be shut down at the end of May, and people are death threatening the developers for some fucking reason, even though it definitely wasn't their decision to shut it down. I know that this is painful for everyone, and I know every member of Player First Games feels it too, it's the developer, but I have to call this out. You're entitled to what you say and think, but when there are threats to harm, it's crossing the line. I hope that you can take a step back and realize that this is an extremely sad time for the team. I am in deep mourning for the game, nobody wanted this outcome, and it wasn't from lack of caring or effort. So yeah, stop being shitty, basically. Stop being assholes. There are some players who do have like genuinely have some excuse, and it's the people who like bought the $100 fucking Founders Pack thing. And that's okay, so I'll just read the thing. Players continue to voice their concerns at the way the game is being closed down, with some complaining that the Founders Packs, originally released during the game's first run in 2022, promised them character unlock tokens, but the game will now end before enough characters have been introduced to use the tokens for. Again, they have a genuine complaint to be made there, but that should not involve death threats. And it shouldn't involve death threats to the people that are not responsible for it. You should be throwing this shit at the upper management. Anyway, stop being dicks. Alright, moving on. I guess Kingdom Come Deliverance? I feel like if I leave the Civ one up, I'll just get I'll get a fucking copyright violation thing. So I'm just gonna leave Kingdom Come up. Anyway, that was the news for the 3rd to the 9th of February 2025. Some kind of interesting tidbits from Capcom's Spotlight thing, but like nothing earth-shattering came out of there. Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny remaster, I'm very hyped for it because I really, really I like the Onimusha series in general, but 2 was my favorite one. It had some really interesting, like outside of just the Onimusha-ness of it, the survival horror thing, but you're a samurai element to it. It also had a sort of like companion system. Like there were a couple of side characters that you would you could give gifts to, and you could talk to them, and they would appear in the story with you. Some of them would accompany you into battle and stuff like that. And they had their own kind of side stories and things like that that weren't really part of the full game. And they threw that out with Onimusha 3, which is really annoying because I really like that aspect of it. But anyway, so I'm pretty hyped to play that. There's no release date for it, but I guess we'll see. They're focused mostly on Monster Hunter right now, so they're probably not going to be talking about that anytime soon. Elsewhere, some interesting PC games. Getting some demos and a few that are getting new release this week. The Xbox Game Pass update, Avowed, should be a pretty interesting one. I might see if I can get... I might actually get it on PC. I was considering just waiting. Like, waiting for it to eventually arrive on PlayStation, but I don't know. I'm kind of in the mood for a sort of a Skyrim game that isn't Skyrim. But anyway. On the other hand, Atomfall is out pretty soon, and that's a Fallout game that isn't quite Fallout, and it's like, that's close enough, maybe? Will that be enough? Because that will be on PlayStation, so I don't know. I might go for that instead. Over on the industry bullshit side, again, layoffs continuing. It's the beginning of the year. This is the traditional time to do layoffs. It's still not great to see it. I think we may have seen the end of the AAA guys doing their layoffs. Although maybe not, because there has been news that Bandai Namco lost a bunch of people last year. Sony may have also indulged in some more layoffs as well. Again, not entirely clear. I've only seen one outlet talking about that, so I don't know if that's just rumor or if that's an actual thing or not. So I'm going to wait to see if that's confirmed or not. Speaking of things that haven't been confirmed, I am aware that Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater did have its release date leaked. I assume we'll hear more about that on, again, another rumor, the State of Play. There might be one next week. So I assume we'll hear more about that then. And have the release date confirmed. It's allegedly the end of August 28th. But we'll wait for the official confirmation on that one. Assuming it is coming with a State of Play. Are we going to hear about a Bloodborne thing, a State of Play? If we were going to get that, I feel like these DMCA things being levied at, the Bloodborne demake and the 60 FPS patch and that kind of thing, I feel like they would have happened way in advance of any announcement. So even if we are getting one, I don't think it will be announced in the next State of Play. Again, I'd love to be wrong, but I don't think I will be. Anyway, Resident Evil Reverse. I mean, I don't think it was doing huge numbers in the first place. It's not surprising it's dying, but it is yet another live service game dying. It is yet another data point in the hey, maybe ease off on the live service push. Maybe nobody wants it anymore. Yeah? Maybe go back to doing the thing that made you money in the first place. Maybe they'll get the memo someday. Who knows? Anyway, what's happening elsewhere on the channel? Nothing, as you've probably noticed, because I just haven't really been playing anything. But off stream, as I mentioned last week, I was going to start playing Far Cry Blood Dragon. This is the kind of 80s homage thing, and I did, and I finished it, and I thought it was really good. There's a lot of like Escape from New York, Predator, Commando. There's a lot of just Arnold Schwarzenegger films really all over the place in it. Yeah, I thought it was really well put together. It's obviously hamstrung a little bit because it has to run off Far Cry 3. And it has to use a lot of the mechanics from Far Cry 3. It can't really do its own thing. Bespoke assets and things like that. Like, it does have a lot of bespoke assets, but its environment is clearly just parts of Far Cry 3 cobbled together. I think one issue, other than that, there's one other issue I did have with it, is that there are some really good upgrades you can get in the game. And noticeably, it's from, like, the takedown thing. There's, like, a chained takedown ability, where if you can manage to stealth take down one enemy and there's another one close by, you can chain take down to that enemy. And later on in the game, you can get some more interesting takedowns. You can get things where you like pull out the guy's gun and shoot somebody else, or like pull the pin on his grenade and kick him towards a group of guys and stuff like that. The problem is you get it so late in the game that it's highly unlikely you'll ever get to use it. I think I got to use it once, and it's because I went out of my way to do it. But otherwise, it's hilarious homage to like 80s stuff. I really liked it. I haven't decided if I'm gonna do the caveman one, Primal, which I think was for Far Cry 4. Thinking about it, but maybe not, because the next thing I moved on to was RoboCop, because I was still in mind to do I was still in the mind to do 80s stuff, I guess, and I was still kind of on a first-person shooter. I don't know, fix. I still needed one, I guess. So I'm playing through that at the moment. I think I'm a little bit more than halfway. I'm liking it a lot right now. One thing I'm a little frustrated by is that you can't replay levels. Because there's stuff I would have missed in some of the levels, and I'm like, that's annoying. I essentially have to replay the whole game to get that now. But otherwise, quite enjoyable. There are some significant difficulty spikes later on in the game. Some of the like robot enemies, Ed 209, for instance, very, very difficult to fight with. But there's some really satisfying elements to it as well. I kind of the throwbacks to the films and that kind of thing are really cool. Anyway, I still have more to play about that. I haven't finished it yet. But that's what I'll be playing off stream. And then hopefully we will get back to proper, actual on-stream Let's Plays soon. Anyway, but that is it from me. Will I just leave RoboCop to play in the background, I guess? Anyway, that's it from me for today. 3rd to the 9th of February 2025. I will be back next week with more weekly news stuff, and then hopefully also more actual video games on the channel as well. Alright. Have a good one, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.